Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How are we all doing today? Hope you're doing great. I got a much requested tutorial today for you guys. Today we're going to be going over how to defend. On a lot of my previous tutorial videos, people have been asking me when I'm going to make a defending tutorial. Today is finally the day. This is going to be a little different from my other tutorials though. So my other tutorials were just one video. This one I figured I would break up into multiple videos, probably 2 or 3 separate videos. I figured it'd be more beneficial to you guys if I made multiple shorter videos instead of one longer video. And if you're new around here, please do hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, I have a bunch of other tutorials and tips on my FIFA tips and tricks playlist, so check that out after this video in case you're having trouble with some other stuff. Enough with all that though, let's get right into it. In my opinion, defending in FIFA is more important than attacking because your opponent is most likely gonna make multiple mistakes throughout the game. So if you can make very few mistakes and limit his chances, you'll have a great chance of winning in this game. So throughout these multiple videos, I will not be going over custom tactics though, because I had a whole separate video on custom tactics where I went over everything, including what the tactics mean and what I use. So if you want custom tactics and things like that, you can go check out that video. This video is more of gameplay stuff, what to do in-game, how to improve your defending. In today's video, we're going to be going over defensive shape, what that means, how to improve your defensive shape, and ultimately how to solidify your defense more as a unit to let up less chances to your opponent. For those of you that aren't too familiar with soccer or football, the defensive shape is basically the shape that your back line holds, whether you have a back 3, back 4, or back 5. It's pretty much how they all connect to one another and how they interact and kind of move together as a unit. So ideally, what you want is to have as straight of a back line as possible. So what this prevents is your opponent from having gaps where he can be behind one defender and still be onside. Because if one of your defenders is way up and the other one is way back, that creates a gap behind one of the defenders and you can easily run him behind, which is what you don't want. You want to have as straight as a line as possible across your back line. So that brings in the question, how do you get that straight line? What you want to do is constantly be watching your defensive shape as you're playing. So if your opponent has the ball, you want to be looking at your defensive line, seeing where your center backs are, seeing where your fullbacks are, and kind of assessing those gaps and trying to minimize them. So whether that be manually switching to a player and dropping him back or moving him forward depending on his position, that's what you got to do. One of the worst habits I see people getting into, and I used to do it, and eliminating this in my game has made me improve so much, is bringing out your defenders, especially your center backs, and kind of picking one out and pushing them forward to attack or chase the ball or something like that. Because what that does is just, it leaves the rest of your defenders stranded there, and it creates such a big gap in your defense, and your defensive shape is way off. So people typically do this when either your opponent has the ball in the midfield and you don't really have any defensive midfielders back at the moment, so you try to apply pressure to the ball and the nearest person is the center back, so you bring your center back forward and try to get pressure on the ball. Or the other scenario is when the guy's maybe on a breakaway and he's kind of he's already bypassed your midfield and he's coming up against your back line. Instead of sitting back and waiting for him to come to you a little bit, you bring one of your defenders out and kind of try to attack the ball that way to put more pressure on him. This is exactly what you don't want to do. Because all it takes is him to beat that one defender, and he can put a through ball in behind, and your defensive shape is way off, there's no covering for him, and you can completely get exposed and let up an easy chance. So just in general, a good rule of thumb is just don't pressure through the midfield with one of your center backs. But there are some exceptions, obviously. If you have someone that's able to cover for him, for example, if you have a defensive midfielder back there and he's in the same area, and if you want to just push forward a little bit and he's able to cover that spot for him, then that's all right. It's mainly the case with fullbacks. Usually if you push up with one of your fullbacks, usually a defensive midfielder will drop in and take his place. In that situation, it can be all right depending on how the game's flowing. But typically, the rule of thumb, if you're ever in doubt, just don't push forward with your defenders and try to put pressure on the ball because your defensive shape gets way out of whack. All it takes is one pass to expose you. The way I was able to find out that was the biggest mistake I was making was pulling defenders out of position is you can just record your gameplay. Usually if you record 1 to 2 games, like bad habits are going to come out, you're going to see them. Even if you win the game by a lot, you're bound to make those little mistakes and those habits are going to come out. So if you just record a couple of your games and just go back and look up where either he got a good chance or you let up a goal, and just see what you did. Because more often than not, it's going to be one of those center backs coming way out of position and your defensive shape is way off. So let's say you're playing and you notice that your defensive shape is way out of whack. What do you do? So I mentioned first, what you could do is manually switch to one of your defenders and bring them back into the right position and manually adjust your defensive shape that way. But another thing you could do is use the offside trap. All you do is press down on the D-pad twice, and what it does is it pushes up your defensive line and all of them kind of stay intact. So what the offside trap does is it pushes up your defensive line and it kind of maintains that shape. So if you're kind of out of whack beforehand, they're going to be, after doing the offside trap, they're going to be a lot more straight. And when your defense is more straight and organized, it's a lot harder to penetrate them and it's a lot harder to get those through balls in behind because you have to time the run absolutely perfectly. Whereas if there's gaps in behind, you can easily run through, and if your defensive shape is off, you can have a guy be in behind and still be onside, which is what you don't want. A warning though with the offside trap, you never want to do it when your opponent is facing towards your goal. Because if he's facing towards your goal, he's ready at all times to play a pass, and if he times a through ball, as soon as you do the offside trap, your defense is pushing up where he's putting a through ball in behind, so he could get a player onside and just be completely gone. So that's what you don't want. So you want to ideally, if you want to do the offside trap to readjust your defensive line, you want to wait till either he's kind of dribbling backwards, facing the other way, or just not in a position where he can play a through ball in behind. So I hope this did help you guys. If you did, please leave a like down below, and also feel free to let me know in the comments if you have any other questions or anything. As I did mention, this is only part 1 of my how to defend tutorial, so make sure you do subscribe down below if you're new around here. That way, whenever I do release part 2 and 3, you'll know about it. As always, thank you guys for watching. I will catch you in the next one. See ya.